Hi, I'm Yves Ramignan, TPO's president. TPO's BrainTrust events pull together experts from various disciplines to discuss contemporary leadership topics. The following are excerpts from our Winter 2011 BrainTrust. We invited association leaders Mary Logan and Fred Krebs and search professional Spish Rorak to join Karen Usher, John Raster, and myself to discuss the unique aspects of nonprofit organizations. Nonprofits' leadership and governance are distinctive and require chief executives to lead both upward and downward. With today's resource challenges and demands, do nonprofits need to evolve? Our conversation covered a broad range of questions, including, does the relationship between the board, CEO, and staff need to change? What are the right characteristics for executive leadership in today's nonprofits? Are we growing the right people to lead within the nonprofit environment? For full transcripts of each participant's interview, please click on the links below.
I think there's a need for staff and leaders in an organization to be always curious, to have a learning environment, to constantly see that the organization has to learn from the members, learn from the environment, learn from other industries, and try to piece it all together to see how are these changes that are going on there in the rest of the world going to impact us. My staff have told me that the most important thing that I have done for them, supporting an environment where every idea is welcome and there's no such thing as a bad idea, and giving them the freedom to make mistakes, to try new things. I think light bulbs went on for them that succession planning, it's a mechanism to help grow your staff so that when the time comes, they are ready to step into greater leadership roles. We also are starting to do the same type of thing, going through the same disciplined analysis for our volunteer leadership. The process of going through this has definitely created a thread of conversation that people are saying they feel supported in wanting to grow professionally in a way that they haven't before. And that's a good thing. That's a hard thing to create in a small organization where you don't have a lot of jobs that people can grow into.
I'm not so sure that we have to develop different skills or make people do different things. They need to understand the mission of the organization. They need to be given opportunities to grow. They need to be given responsibility and opportunities to create and improve their critical thinking, to improve their willingness to make decisions, to enable them to communicate in ways that perhaps they've not had the opportunity to do in their earlier training. One of the things that we're trying to do with our staff is to provide a series of training courses and opportunities for them to learn. And some of the issues and some of the topics that we're focusing on include things like change management, conflict management, financial management. All of these are issues that organizations have had to deal with forever since I've been working professionally. But there seems to be a particular urgency today. And as we become larger and we have a more and diverse workforce, these are types of things that I think are necessary to help our employees do a better job in interacting with each other.
One of the aspects of being a leader, being the top individual, being the CEO, is to be prepared for change and to be prepared that it could come from unlikely quarters and sources. Being the CEO is not an easy task. It requires keeping a focus, keeping your eye on the ball, having the confidence, the constancy, but also recognizing when it has to change. I think the leader has got to be somebody who projects confidence. He, him, or she may himself or themselves not be sure, but they've got to project that constancy of effort, the continuity of vision. So that may be an element that is born out of a character or may be acquired. An orderly progression, one that's correctly executed, is presumably more easily communicated. As a result, the layers in the pyramid below the top will be able to accept that change, see where they fit into it. But I think building a trajectory, a career path, a development path, which is a direct result of a succession plan, all the way down to the bottom of the pyramid, is an excellent way of managing morale and employee productivity. So I think a correctly conducted succession is actually a very good factor in building cohesion and a sense of not unanimity, but consensus in an organization writ large, top to down.
There's some clear challenges around bringing forward young people into that role and how there's so little direct experience that can be provided to them to deal with some of the more subtle nuances of leadership, that it's really something that you have to learn by doing. And I think there's some room within that to talk about ways to develop our up-and-coming leaders, more effectively and with a more targeted focus on what they're going to face when they become chief executives. There are positive opportunities that can be provided when you have a succession kind of program in place. So I think it's important to think of this from an opportunity standpoint. I think that the whole idea of rolling that down within the organization and linking that into the performance system, linking that into the assignment of task, linking that into the concept of measuring progress or measuring results of the organization really is that last bit of knit that holds together everybody focusing on the mission. And engagement is driven by understanding what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. A program of engagement, if you will, is that people who understand what it is they're contributing to, why they're doing what they're doing, what difference it makes, are always people that are thinking and engaged in their work and wanting to contribute more. It is designed to make the entire organization, their own existence within that organization, what they do to contribute, more powerful and more effective. And everybody wants to be on the side of something that's becoming more powerful and more effective. Mm-hmm.
There are key differences in how a CEO has to manage in the nonprofit world versus managing a regular board of directors in a for-profit corporation. The whole dynamic of how the board may also be part of the customer base and how they may or may not interact with the staff directly is different. The CEO has to remember who he's talking to, what role the CEO is playing, what role that individual board member may be playing at any given time, and that dynamic is something you just never see at a for-profit company. We're finally getting to a point where mature companies are populated and managed by people that no longer have the command and control, people as cogs in the machine kind of perspective. Because as long as you have the idea that people are just cogs in the machine, then who cares about succession? But if we talk about it more like ongoing development, from that perspective then, succession is effortless and a result, rather than starting at succession like a discrete concept and forcing it in. So it's about constantly developing people into more advanced leadership roles. It builds on the organization.
We talked quite a bit about how to develop staff grappling with the absence of people that seem to be wanting to adopt the traditional lifestyle of the CEO, including the pressures, the schedules, the lack of work-life balance. But one of the things that we touched on that I think is really interesting is the other side of nonprofit CEO leadership, and that's their board of directors. Boards are experiencing the same issues that we find in the workplace. I think that it's the dynamics in the sense that if you think about, like everybody, we're asking people to do more with less. I think the challenge will be to figure out how are we going to manage boards in a way that we can get great talent there and bring it to the organization and then ultimately to its memberships. I think the biggest thing that CEOs can do, though, is to think more about process and structure and being proactive in establishing sort of the what-ifs and how different things happen to make the board's involvement still be important, but not as time-consuming for the board members. Now, the other thing that we talked about that I think is really untapped is the idea of succession planning at the board level. And, we had our association executives here today, and they have, from their current board experience as well as previous board experiences, processes to move leadership through multiple positions in the board into that chair position. But there is not anything beyond that in terms of making sure that we actually have the right kind of person leading a board. But I find that fascinating.